I'm Jordan Moss. I'm a sophomore on the women's track and field team.
How you doing? I'm Coach Jay. I'm the throws coach on track and field team.
All right, so I know I'm quick to always be like, I'm more than just an athlete. So who is Coach Frazier outside of being a coach and maybe while being a coach at the same time?
So as far as athletically goes, I'm a two-time All-American hammer thrower. I went to Southeastern Louisiana University where I threw hammers, shot put, javelin, discus, and weight. I did it all. And during my time at Southeastern, I was very, very active. I was a member of Project Pull, which is a mentorship organization. I pledged the new Delta chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I used to do things with NAACP. Once I graduated and I completed undergrad, I went on to pursue my master's in education, and I'm currently a PhD student studying human sexuality.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, being a student is very difficult. And I'm also a poet, so I write poetry. I published 2 books actually, and I'm pretty active in my community as well. I like to do a lot of advocacy work. I talk a lot about my experience as a Black lesbian. That's something people may not know, and basically how that experience ends up influencing what I do, the way that I move about the world, as well as improving my coaching technique as well.
Okay, so those 2 books that you mentioned, can you talk about a little bit the titles and what they're about, or can you talk about what they're about?
I don't mind talking about what they're about. So it's 2 collections of poetry, and most of the writing that I've done has always been about my own personal experience. I came out when I was in high school, so I ended up going through a lot of mental health things as far as dealing with my family and microaggressions and stuff like that that I experienced. And so I used poetry as my outlet, and so I started to write poems, and then I ended up sharing them with people. Then I started performing when I was in undergrad, and a little bit after I graduated, I decided, well, let me just put them together into a book. And so I made 1 book, and then about 2 years later, I published the second one.
Okay, so how did all your experiences through what you went through high school and all, how that translate to college athletics and then from there?
Oh, it was really nerve-wracking at first. I remember my junior, senior year of high school when I was like getting reached out to by schools, and when I was reaching out to schools to get recruited and stuff, one of the big concerns that I had was, would I feel comfortable being myself on these teams? Like, would this coach not recruit me because of my sexual orientation? Would they not necessarily want me to come and join their team because I'll be that little lesbian, or I'll be that loud Black girl, or something like that? So I had to really think about how I portrayed myself and if I would be welcomed into different spaces, or if that would be the straw that broke the camel's back and ended up erasing a lot of opportunities for me. One thing that I really, really appreciated about Southeastern when I was there is on my visit, the coach kind of like immediately made me know that 1, he knew I was a lesbian, and 2, that it was perfectly fine for me to come and exist as I am on that team. And although I didn't think too much into it back then, it was like, okay, this feels good. Now looking back, creating those spaces where athletes can feel like they can exist and be themselves and not have the pressure of being, you know, trying to fit the stereotype of what a good athlete is supposed to be, made me feel a lot more comfortable. So I try to make sure I bring that same level of authenticity and sense of belonging and welcomeness to my group as well.
Okay, that's good. Can we pause? I'm finna have a moment, and I don't want to have a moment on camera.
Ooh, it's okay.
No, it's not okay. It's okay, but it's not okay.
You want a hug?
I don't know what I want right now.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you alone. Let you figure that out.
I want to say what I want to say, but I don't know if I'm ready to say what I want to say. So like, I do not want this to happen.
You are okay.
Okay. All right. Just in case, yes. I think I might be okay though. Whew. Jesus Christ, I did not want this to go like this.
Girl, don't think about none of these people in here.
I know it's not even the people. It's about who might see this video and who might feel some type of way about what I want to say. I don't know if I'm ready to address that yet.
James Baldwin said nothing can be changed until it is faced. So,
Ooh.
if you want something to be changed, you got to face it.
Right. I'm trying to talk about it.
And I don't know exactly what it is, but if you want support, I'm here.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Whatever. I'm just gonna. Are we still?
Yeah, but I can cut all this out.
Okay. So now I can just continue. Well, it's good. I don't want to say it's funny, but it's kind of funny that you say that because I still struggle with that. Like now, feeling like it's coming out necessary, or is it, not necessary in being in this space? But I also think it's just important, period, because I'm an athlete, but I'm also somebody who identifies as, I guess you say, gay, but then I'm also somebody who identifies with a bunch of things, and then I struggle with like wanting to put those labels on myself, but then also realizing like those labels, mean nothing at the same time, but at the same time they do mean something. So I've been kind of like in between with like, do I need to label myself, or do I not need to label myself, or how do I comfortably, just exist in all of that, but while at the same time still, you get what I'm saying? Like,
I do get what you're coming
because like you don't want to just always put labels on yourself and like conform to what people think the labels are, but you also don't want to ignore those labels too, because those are an important part of like who you are and what you believe and all that type of stuff. So I like that you shared that with me, because it's just, I don't know, it just feels good to like know somebody understands and like, went through the same thing that you went through.
And this experience is exactly why I like to open when I introduce myself as I'm a Black lesbian, because I want people to understand that we carry identities that people may see and people may not see. And the way we move about the world doesn't change just because you can or cannot see whatever my identity is.
Right.
And so, first of all, I do believe gender and sexual orientation is flexible and is on a spectrum, so it changes. However, we don't necessarily talk about gender and stuff like that, or sexual orientation just on a platform. A lot of times people see me and they see a coach. Right. Or they see you and they see an athlete. But we do still carry our identities no matter what room we walk into. And so if we're, let's say hypothetically in this one space and somebody's using gay as an insult, but I don't look gay, whatever gay looking like.
Yeah, whatever means, it looks like, sounds like.
So, I look that way, so then when people go and they use these words as insults, or they say things that's demeaning or use microaggressions towards individuals, when they don't know that that person is there, it could be because they don't have experiences with those kind of people, so they don't understand or they don't realize it. So I like to go in and intentionally show that I'm here. Like I want to represent those that look like me and experience life in similar ways that I do. I want to normalize the versatility in individuals as a whole. Basically, I want to normalize our existence. That way you can exist as a queer person today, heterosexual tomorrow, if that's what you choose to do.
If that's what I want to do, then
if whatever floats your boat is your boat. So I think the representation is really, really important in that sense, because if you don't know that these people exist in these spaces, then sometimes it causes individuals to believe that that space isn't for me. Like I'm not supposed to do that, or I'm not supposed to be there. And that's where things like imposter syndrome can come into play huge. And imposter syndrome, for in case you didn't know, is basically feeling like you're in this room and you're an imposter, like you don't necessarily belong there. And I've had experiences, so many I can't even name. I still feel imposter syndrome all the time. And so when I feel those ways, it's like I don't necessarily know if I'm supposed to be here. I felt it as a little Black girl from New Orleans that was getting a master's in San Diego. So like my family wasn't traveling out there that far before. Like that wasn't a thing. So to be out there and in those spaces and in these rooms with these grown, like real, I'm an adult, I'm grown. But I mean like these 40 and 50-year-old individuals who have been deep into their career, and now I'm sitting next to them as classmates, and I'm like barely 22, 23 kind of. And so I would feel like I don't belong in those rooms. When I would look around and I would see that there's literally one other Black person in this room with me, and it's a class of maybe 30 people, it's like, well, I don't know if I belong here or they belong here. I remember this one experience, we were doing an icebreaker, and they said just go on your phone and share the last song you listened to with everybody. And so I immediately turned like, I'm like, you know, I turned flush red. I'm like, the last song I listened to, you want me to play that now? And the last song I was listening to on my way to class was Act Up by City Girls. And I'm in this class with 28 people that don't look like me, one other person who knows this song, and I'm supposed to just play this song.
Right.
And it's like, I was nervous. Everybody around me was like, you know, why are you nervous? What's going on? Just play the song. And I'm like, y'all don't understand.
It's not that easy to just play the
y'all
song.
Y'all don't understand. If I play this song, you're going to think differently of me.
You're going to think this of you because of the connotation that comes with the City Girls and what they stand for. But that don't even necessarily mean that.
Thank you. I'm so glad you said that because I was sitting in class and I had to have a moment. I was like, you know, I'm not going to play the song, y'all. I might play it at the end. I'm not ready to do this yet. And so when I was sitting in class, I was going through my head like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm one of those. And then I had to stop myself because I was like, you know, what is one of those? Like, what do you mean by that? And so then I was like, this is me in my head talking to myself. And I'm like, they're going to think you're one of those. And I'm like, what's one of those? One of those people that listen to City Girls and like the song? And then I just sat there for a moment and it was like, yeah, I am. I am one of those people that like City Girls and listen to the song. And I'm here currently working on my master's degree.
Right.
And I can talk to you about implicit biases, microaggressions, white supremacy, and anything else you want to talk about. Let's talk about pedagogy and education. Let's get into it. So it's like I didn't feel like I had to take off my, you know, who I am. I guess you want to call it my hood girl, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But I didn't have to take that off and leave it outside when I came into this room because all parts of me, the ghetto part, the city girl part, the intellectual part, the academic, all of those parts of me are welcome into any space that I go into because I'm there. If I wasn't there, then, you know, maybe that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But if I'm in here, then clearly all components of my identity are welcome in this space, and I just have to show up and take up that space.
Yeah. Well, that kind of led us into like why representation matters because I play track and field. You know, you're my coach. You're on the coaching staff, and we see a lot of people that look like us in the sport of track and field. But I didn't always play track and field. I grew up playing softball, so like that's what I really wanted to do. But that's a whole nother story for another time. Ran into some incidents with my coaches that made me feel like ostracized, and you know, it was only 2 little black girls on the softball team, so you know that led into a whole nother situation. If I could go back, I wish I knew the stuff that I knew now as far as having tough skin and knowing that it's okay for me to be the only little black girl that's playing softball and all that stuff. But I didn't have that representation. I didn't have a girl that was older than me on the softball team who was black, who was flourishing and thriving and doing all this. So, I mean, that's important to me now to, like you said, and to you to just show that you can be this, this, and this and still be in this space, or you can be this and this and be in this space even if nobody else in the space is like you. And then I dealt with that growing up too because I went to a predominantly white Christian school. So it was always, I dealt with microaggressions from, you know, I don't want to say the white people, but
okay.
I dealt with microaggressions from them because I talk like them, I talk proper. So like my white people the white friends that I went to school with, they would be like, oh, you know, you don't talk like them and all this. And then my black friends are, you talk white. Or what do you mean I talk white? Like, I just dealt with that in my head a lot. Like, oh, I used to have natural hair. Well, I still have natural hair. I have locks now, but I had my loose natural hair then. So I used to be, you know, ashamed to go to school sometimes with my afro out and not put it in like a hair tie and just wake up and wear my afro because I'm like, all the white girls, they have like straight hair. And maybe I need to straighten my hair. Maybe I need to wear braids all the time. So representation is important.
It is super important. Like, I remember when I accepted this job, the first thing I said was, what do black female coaches wear to work? It's really funny, but it's literally something that I asked myself. And I've been an athlete since I was like 7 years old. I played volleyball, I played basketball, I did a little bit of softball, and clearly I did track. And so I remember when I accepted the job, I sat down and I was reflecting on all of my past coaches, and I really never had a first off, I never had a black track coach. Well, that was my specific coach. I did have one that recruited me, but I didn't have like my specific coach that was a black coach, and I didn't have any black female track coaches. So once I was able to move on into the higher level, so when I was competing collegiately, I didn't have anybody to look to say like, oh, so this is what she wears at a track meet. So when I came to work, it's like, so what am I supposed to wear to the track meet? And then I didn't want to come onto this all-male coaching staff and say, okay, well, I'm going to wear sweatpants like they wear sweatpants. I'd rather tights than sweatpants. So am I supposed to wear sweatpants because that's what my male colleagues wear? Am I supposed to, you know, wear bigger T-shirts? They didn't have stuff that necessarily fit me. This polo a little loose for my liking. But because our staff only had male coaches, we didn't have, you know, like necessarily female fitting polos already.
Right.
So those little small things are stuff that people don't necessarily think about until you're in that space. And you have to be the one to say, okay, well, I guess this is what a black coach is going to get. This is what a black female coach wear to work.
This is what I'm going to wear, so this is what it's going to be.
Same thing comes with me being able to go and talk to my athletes and being transparent about who I am. When I come into spaces, like we just had this moment, I expressed who I am. I talked a little bit more about my journey, and it ended up creating a little bit more of a connection. And hopefully it helped you feel seen. And I want my athletes to feel seen, and I want those that don't necessarily look like or experience life the same way I do to know that experiences outside of what they know is truth exist. So know that, yes, there are black, queer, female coaches that advocate against white supremacy that also can come out here and teach you how to throw this hammer at least 60 meters.
Right.
Like, know that I can come and do my job the way that I'm supposed to do it, and I also exist in these other spaces. So I think once we're able to start broadening individuals' horizons, so it's like you're spending more time with people outside of what you know is true. So, you know, you're dealing with somebody that it's not typically your friend. It's not somebody that you would just go walk up to and start a conversation about. I think those kind of things ends up creating spaces that feel significantly more welcoming, where athletes, colleagues, students, everybody can come into these spaces and exist and not feel like they need to fit this certain stereotype or this certain design of what this person is supposed to be. Because ultimately, we're all different. We all literally experience life differently. And the sooner we get to realize that life varies depending on who you are and what opportunities you're granted and what opportunities you're not granted, what you look like, what you embrace, who you love. Once we embrace the difference that exists in life, I think we'd be much better off.
Yeah, me too. And I also think that people just need to learn to be, well, we have to teach ourselves to be more empathetic towards other people and their experiences, because people's past experiences is what makes, wait, let me get my words together. People's past experiences is what makes how they think today. Like, did I say that right?
Yeah, I think you did.
You get what I'm saying. Yeah, you understand what we hear. Okay, yeah. So like what somebody went through in the past affects how they see things now. So everybody didn't, like you said, experience life the same. So that, you know, shows how they make their decisions and stuff today. So I think people, as people just in general, we need to be a lot more empathetic towards, you know, what people go through. Because, yeah, we might not think the same, but why do they think that way? Or what happened to them for them to, you know, act that way, and et cetera.
Exactly. And I think that once we also realize that people can't leave certain parts of them outside of the room, then we can also start to make a lot more progress. I use this example of like baking a cake. When you bake a cake, you need flour, eggs, butter, milk. You mix it all in a bowl. You put it in an oven. It bakes into a cake. Now, when I pull my cake out, I can't necessarily like cut off a slice that's just egg.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't just eat the egg part of my cake. And if I'm a cake, you know, I can't just eat the black part of my cake, or I can't just cut the lesbian part of my cake and leave it outside while I'm having a conversation with heterosexual black people, you know? So all of these components of our identities go with us. We, you know, a really nice cake, I like to say. And so I think that once we get used to the fact that everybody brings different components into their lives and their experiences end up impacting the way that they move about, like I said, we can be better off. That's another reason why I like to integrate a lot of mindfulness techniques and practices into my training. I also like to implement a lot of authenticity. So I talk to my athletes about my experiences. They've met my fiance. They like, we've had all of these moments where I was able to show them more of who I am, and they feel comfortable enough to show me more of who they are as well. And then it creates spaces where we all feel comfortable working towards one common goal, and we're all still learning from one another as well.
Okay. So when you hear the words Black excellence, what do you think of? Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about Black excellence?
It's a little narcissistic, but me.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
So, when I hear Black excellence, I just really think of Black people living bold and authentically as themselves, whether that's sitting in a corner reading a book because that's what you want to do, or rather you are front and center dancing in front of the whole crowd. If you're singing, I feel like it's existing in what you feel most comfortable. So you don't have to feel like you need to be standing at the front of all the protests with your fists forward, high, because, Black power is where it's at. If that's not who you are, then that's not who you are. You exist as you see fit. And I think that once we as people, as Black people, learn to lean into us and what we want to do and who we want to be and how we choose to identify and really take control of the freedom that we have, then, that's really, really an example of Black excellence.
Yeah, I can agree. When I think of Black excellence, I really just think we are excellent just because we are Black and we can walk into the same store as, white people. We can go and sit at the same bar as white people. I think that's excellence in itself because our people have just went through so much and fought so hard. Just for me to be able to sit right here in this chair and in front of this camera and this athletic, I didn't want to say that, in front of this athletic department and everything. So I think that's excellent in itself. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think Black excellence is being able to be who you are and exist boldly, authentically, and unapologetically as you.
Yep. So, I don't have